Welcome to the Gestalt podcast, where we discuss psychological, philosophical, and daily topics at work, at home. Together with Nik, we discuss today the topic of when is a project successful? When do you feel like success has happened in a project, but also when it doesn't? And I hope after this episode you can understand the definition of success a bit differently, or even replace it or add the definition of done to your ideas.
Hi, my name is Nik and I'm a software developer. I have a passion to build things, but I also look at things from business perspective a lot. Craftsmanship is one thing, business is another thing, and I try to merge these together in favor to deliver way more value. And this is what I like to talk in this Gestalt podcast.
Hi, my name is Marius. I'm a designer who runs an agency with offices in Berlin and Munich. Today we're discussing the topic of business success. As a business designer, I'm curious to hear today what we can do to improve success at work and for your own career.
And I will be a business developer today. Let's go for it. All right, this is a really good topic, Marius. Let's get it started with that. I'm kind of have different things to discuss today. For example, one is more like technical flow, what makes the freelancer or individual or the company successful, like definition of done, for example. And the second is more psychological part of this deal, because I think this is where the most critical value is of defining like success. Let me start with the second one, because this is a purpose of our podcast to talk about psychology, philosophy of two successful digital creators. So what does it feels that the project that you complete as a freelancer is successful? It strongly depends on the context of where you serve it. For example, it could be that you are hired by some bigger company to do some job, to do a design project, to do some programming project, for example. And the important psychological part here, and to make the success for your customer who will pay you the money, is to dig deeper into their business. Meaning, so there is always a manager, an intermediate manager that hires your agency or hires me as a freelancer. And that manager has certain business problem. The manager needs to deliver certain feature, certain product to their company to achieve some business goals. It could be financial business goals. It could be some other type of business goals, maybe branding goals, marketing goals, whatever. But there is this business nuance that is important. But oftentimes, managers won't communicate you this. They have a problem to build a product. They hire you, expecting that you will build a product with them. But they forget, and maybe that's even not their responsibility, that they on their own will value your outcomes if they directly hit their own problems. Meaning, if you don't just build a product according to your contract agreement with this manager of that company who hires, but if your product that you build solves what that manager is supposed to solve for his company. And I think at least I made many mistakes throughout my career, believing that what is important, the most important, is the craft, is how polished, how fine-tuned, how shiny the product is that I'm shipping, that I'm delivering. Because my relationship with managers always was, okay, what are the requirements, what needs to be there, what features, what it should do, and so forth. This is what we are passionate about because we want to create something. And therefore, we are putting most of the attention into that to deliver something according to the agreements, to the requirements, and so forth. But we completely forget and don't put any attention on that point, but will it actually justify the business value for them? Will it actually make sense? Okay. And I remember many failing projects where agencies were hiring me. We were building according to the specification that we defined collaboratively with the managers of these companies. Everything was done and delivered, but then they realized that this doesn't solve their problem at the end. It doesn't fit the customer, it doesn't fit the market, and many other things. And so they destroyed the project afterwards, even had a huge budget to build it.
Yeah.
And your, I think, goal as individual, being a freelancer or agency or whoever, is to understand that business part where the project should solve. And if you do this, then your relationship with this company, with these people who hired you, will get only stronger because they won't be able to avoid you anymore in the future projects, because you directly hit into solving their business problem.
Yeah.
And there you have plenty of opportunities to negotiate what is important and what not, because they might, since they hire a design agency, let's say, or a single programmer like me, they think that they will now lead how this project should look like, how this product should look like. And they will tell you, okay, we need this feature, I think, we need this feature and this feature, okay?
Mm.
But the point is that they might be wrong.
Mm.
And you, as the other side, should take that opportunity to figure out how exactly that feature will impact their business goals. And if you do it, you will be very successful. The project will be very successful. Your relationship with people will be very successful in that state. In the previous episode, in the Gestalt podcast, we talked about freelance business as a system. And there I mentioned multiple times over-deliver. And maybe it's worth now to extend a bit more on this concept. Over-deliver doesn't mean that you have to completely over-deliver with the craftsmanship, that everything looks shiny and good. But over-deliver, it probably means that you solve their business goals.
Yeah. So many facets. So what you just mentioned, I think is really like a masterclass of this topic. And when we say successful project is done, what does it mean? When you first picked up the definition of done, we discussed it, it really made me think about this term, and not only in development, but I think in terms of the project goals. And like you said, there's different areas where there is marketing, there is business, there is accounting, HR, so many things that we can consider in the project. And where people may be talking about KPIs or other goals that they have, it's maybe a language that you don't know. Like I think about it in the beginning when I started as a freelancer, I did not know, to be honest. Like, what does it mean? I was researching, I was looking. And you're so focused on trying to ship a good product or be successful in your own case. But what does it mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's really a value of a professional, like you just mentioned it. And if you're able to see those facets, it's incredibly valuable. So, for example, if we take a project where you work on as a freelancer and you compare yourself, starting by yourself as a successful person to somebody else. So I don't like to use the term as much because, of course, successful, what does it mean? Are you successful when you are mentioned on a website? Are you successful if you have that many followers? Are you successful if you have that much money on your bank account? If you can charge this hour rate? What does it mean? And I think that comes back again to the topic where we discussed where you feel good in the project, where do you feel good in your own craft. So why I say this is because the other person on the other side has the same situation, but a very different lens, maybe. Like you said, in a person's situation where they are employed, maybe the goal is to reach that yearly goal in revenue. Maybe that goal is to improve the feedback that has been given for the product, to improve the experience for the customers. Maybe we need to deal with our technical debt. And that's something I think you can learn so much from when you work on the projects. Not only look at the one topic that you think makes it successful, but being able to listen to the other parts of the project. And like you said, I feel like the more we do projects and I hear those things, maybe they're not on the call, Maybe they are when we talk at dinner. Maybe they are after the call or before the call. Very small details to you. But to the other person, they are very important. And yeah, like you mentioned a few things, and I think I'm curious to explore this from all the different perspectives. Like, you're in a situation where you're kind of part of a team. You work with the team daily. You coach the people in the team. You're also a freelancer. So yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
What I want to extend a bit from what you said is this unique value proposition, you as individual. You could be hired by a corporate company and work there. And normally, the corporate employees of the company, especially creative ones, designers, developers, copywriters, whoever, they are somehow shielded from the business problems. There are some managers who has a connection to the business, and they translate this into what needs to be done for that, they think. And therefore, they shield us. They say, we need this feature. And we are like, oh, cool. Yeah, let's develop that really cool feature. Let's do it. And we do it. We design it. We program it. We test it. And that's all good. And we feel probably fulfilled with that. But the point is that your individual value at that moment is very equal to the rest of the corporate employees. You are working here or someone else is hired to work there. You just receive these requirements from some manager and build that cool feature. The unique value proposition that you will create is that you directly or your team impact the business. Then you will be visible in comparison to the rest of the employees, because when everybody will be fulfilling its passion to build this feature, to test it, to do the stuff that was agreed, you will challenge why we build this feature. And together with this other part, the manager who translates to you these business requirements, you will now directly have opportunity to make sure that the business fits in, that the problem that the manager needs to solve is solved not by him, but by you together. Okay? And this will highlight you. This will make you unique in comparison to the rest, because you are business-driven developer or business-driven designer. You know, there are many examples like that. For example, I could say a good example is Maurizio Poletto. He is currently a board member of Erste Group, the bank which I'm working with. But before, he was a designer, and he still is a designer. But at some point in his career, I believe, he decided that he will focus on business problems through perspective of design. So not only graphic design like we all started with at the beginning, but really how design could impact the business for better. And therefore, you see him leading the bank.
Yeah.
Another good example here, one I want to throw it, is Cristiano Ronaldo. He is currently paid astronomical amount of money. And why? Because in Arabic region, some people decided that they have a business problem, awareness around their countries, about a region, about sports. And they found out some person who could not only bring value to the particular team by scoring goals and winning games, but who could stand as a patron, as a kind of visual representation of whole Arabic sports. Okay? And therefore, there was this fit. And therefore, probably he is so unique in these last years, because he is something that people associate now with Arabic sports. Okay? He solves certain people problem. Probably they have some issue that they want to have a World Cup in their region, football World Cup, or maybe some other sports, big events happening and nobody allow them to do that. But now they have an opportunity because of these brands that they create together with this player.
Yeah, totally. So in the business context, I think this is very important because on the one side, of course, if it's a hobby for you and you like to do this, maybe you have different goals. But if we talk about it in the sense of your job as a freelancer, as somebody in a company, those psychological parts are equally important as the craft that you have. And the sample that you gave, I think, from your colleagues or from the company in the bank is very interesting because I think that if you look at education now, or if you look at a career that you have, or like, your own talent that you're using in a company, it's not as static as you will stick to that topic as in terms of design. And what happened in his case, or maybe I'll just switch to mine, because those moments I also had, especially like I think the last 5 to 10 years, the more I work with clients and with partners, I rather call them partners than clients, because in that kind of relationship, you see things in a different way. And as an agency, I think it's even a different situation because you're on the outside of that business. And like you said, you're maybe hired for a certain project, like a website, like a rebranding, applying certain things, updating the app. And the more you realize those business cases, I think it's, for me, in terms of design, I still see it as a designer. So maybe for him, it's a similar situation. But I'd rather take those assets and try to include them in a design-driven process. So if somebody comes to us, and I think some agencies have different approaches, like we mentioned last time, they do certain projects that way. And the business goal for them to be successful is to get a certain award, to be able to finish the project in time, to be able to deliver a really good looking product that looks like it comes from this agency. And you see a lot of those things, I think, especially now, because it's become so easy to deliver projects. There are a lot of car brands, there are a lot of different banks. There is a lot of competition on the market for certain products. And to the outside, because there is a lot of marketing effort being put into those startups, to the outside, it looks like it's successful. But like we discussed, what it means to the outside and what is being told in certain areas, probably not the case. So I think what you mentioned, to come back to that business value in terms of a company, is so good to be able to focus on this. And the more you can educate yourself, listen to things like these, see them in the projects, try to figure out what this is, the more you can define success for yourself and for the team. Yeah.
I think you are a very good example. Not sure whether you realize that or not, but you switched exactly the same way. You were a graphic designer, passionate about colors and all this stuff, and now you are running a business. That wouldn't be possible if you wouldn't think about business of the customer, of your partners who you deliver for, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's funny you say that. Yeah. Yeah. The more we think about it, when I started, I think I did a lot of illustration work, and there were a lot of companies at the time that ran competitions for you to design shirts or other things, like for Smart, like for example, the car company, or outdoor brands like Patagonia, things like those. So they always ran competitions for you to deliver a design, then people voted on it. And in the end, you were either chosen or not. And I remember there was this one project that got you $5,000. And at that time, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So a lot of designers delivered to that competition. And Jeff, who won that competition, I think is also a good case. His brand is Arkmonk. We will link it later in the description notes. Managed to be from a designer who got this project award, or like this compensation for the competition, build a whole business out of this. And I think the moment I realized, because one of those competition websites then went bankrupt, and I was like, how can this be? From the outside, they look so successful. They are part of a big company. Everybody looks successful. They create all these nice projects. But at some point, they had to close. And then I got really curious how the business side of things work. So being able to transition into this situation for me, it was not as easy, because I think I really still would like to be an illustrator. I like it very much. It's kind of my private hobby or passion. But at some point I realized, okay, there is a certain cap to this. Either I really have to burn out and do a lot of work all the time to be able to manage those competitions. Yeah, building your own like brand to sell online has been very hard, especially at that time. There was no Shopify. You had to build your own shop and maintain it. It was technically very challenging. There were a lot of factors. I think I tried to have online shops, but you don't earn a lot. And looking at it now, you really have to figure out so much. Like I thought, okay, maybe in 5 years, things might be automated. A lot of companies will have libraries of assets. They can create the images. That was way before AI. So I was like, will I be continuing on that path? Of course, there have been great projects like the one for Microsoft or Smart or all the other companies that have been there, but it's very punctual and financially just within a month or so. And then UI design happened. And I think the technical combination with you, with all the people that we've worked with, the knowledge that I gathered, you totally start to see the business approach and figure it out as a business. But yeah, good point. I haven't thought about it like that in the beginning. That's true.
Now, many years, and you running a successful design agency. Maybe therefore you don't put any ads online. People find you directly. Maybe because you are over-delivering. Maybe because you solve really their problems and they return back. And this is your unique value proposition.
Yeah, if you see it that way, exactly. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So now on more technical side, the definition of done. So what does it mean actually delivering that business value along with the product and features and whatever the customer wants you to do? The definition of done, a part of that definition of done obviously is technical requirements, acceptance criteria, how the feature should look like, what should it do, how the customer will use it, and so we will implement and design accordingly. But another part of definition of done, which is important, is to identify with your customer, with your manager who translates you business requirements from the company that hires, how to measure that business impact that we are making. Okay, let me give you an example from my work that happened. So we continuously, every sprint, every 2 weeks, had certain bugs coming back in our development, in our app. And this started to bother because every time before starting a next sprint, a next development cycle, we have to fix the bugs and only then deliver a feature further on. At some point, I realized that this is wrong. This is a repetitive pattern. We should do something about that. And I, together with some people in my team, figure out how can we track how many bugs are coming every sprint. So we have a chart now since many years already that every sprint brings so much bugs. Having that sprint was a measure for us. We knew that if we improve the trend line of that chart, so it goes down and less bugs arrive, will be a business impact because we will have more free time at the beginning of next sprint, next circle, to work on feature delivery, meaning building things faster. And throughout the years, we applied different development practices from extreme programming, for example, pair programming and owning the quality together and others, in favor to see whether these measures that we capture along improve. And they did improve. And this was a business impact that we are creating. So we are saving the team money because you burn on development work every day, right? My team has 4 developers, let's say. And these developers, instead of building features farther on, building some business value that has potential for our customers, we are fixing bugs for a few days up front. So we wanted to reduce that time, so we won. And therefore we save money. Now we move faster, we build faster because we have less time to fix bugs that comes from previous sprints. So this is an example on the development level, how you could bring value. The measurement should be a part of your definition of done. And the ideal case is that you define that measurement together with that person who is your intermediate to the company's business that you are serving to. And second part of definition of done, and this measurement in general, should be shorter circles that evaluate whether you are going to your goal. So you define a measurement, you know that what it will look like if you improve, if you success. So some charts, some stats will tell you that because you have it in place. And now you need to figure out what would be the smallest increment of work, the smallest circle that will help you to identify whether the activity you did within this circle actually justifies it impacts the measurements or no. Okay?
Yeah.
If you have such circles running, which are small, and you get that feedback from that measurement tool, whatever you have, then you are more likely to succeed to get to the biggest business impact, because you quickly validate whether the decision that you made within certain circle paid off or no. So you could throw away some hypotheses that you had because you thought, okay, well, let's build this feature, okay, and it will solve these things. It will increase the amount of engagement people will have in my app, let's say in that app. And you validate whether that feature really did that. And if it's not, you throw it away and build next one until you find out that path that leads to your business value.
Yeah. And that was like when you first had this idea of the definition of done, to apply it not only to one task, but to the project. I found it really interesting and very helpful for us too, because it really puts that work into a very different situation. I mean, just to have another example, I think the one you gave was very good. Because to the outside, it often looks like, okay, well, you develop the app, you're going to be successful, everything is good, very simplified. But if we really look into professional work as you do it, that's very complex. There's a lot of factors to hand in, like there's legal situations, there's development team costs, information like knowledge that you have in team, so many assets to consider.
Yeah.
So one example I would like to give is a company we worked with, a startup. They wanted to build a DiGA app. So in Germany, it's an app that's accredited by the government to be an official health application. So for example, Doctolib or others that you know on the market, you can use the medical service through the app. Of course, not everybody's able to do this because the money that you pay for the service is reimbursed from your health insurance. And to be able to do that, you have to go through a very rigorous process. You have to have certain certifications to be able to document within the team, on and on. So one situation was we started trying to get this label, this accreditation of being a DiGA and being listed on the official website to be one. If you manage, that goal or definition of done is very significant because you are able then to show it to your customers. You are able to charge for your services. But to get there, it really involved a lot of assets. So we had to have a legal counsel, which was not cheap for this whole process. We had to document the whole process. And what I'm trying to say is within the design team, that's the example that I want to give now, the goal was to create a very good UX for this app. And within the testing phase, we created something rather great for that user group. It was elderly women, which has not really served on the market so far. And it was great. Like within the test, it was great. People liked to use it. Engagement was there in the test phase. But then we realized we were totally off when it comes to the requirements of this process because certain things were not able. We could not store the data. We could not do certain things. So, and that's, I think, something that happens very often, especially in the design teams where I can relate to or I can talk to our development teams. Would rather focus on this one KPI for yourself or this one successful factor, but not factor in the others. So I think what you mentioned is amazing because you really see that there is business impact if you are able to reduce those bugs, if you're able to reduce that way of working. So I think now for yourself, probably the question is like, what is this? Do I even understand in my team what this value is? What do I do? Because I think the other one that we worked with, it's now a profitable business, which, you know, if you're working in a startup or you're working in a company, is not easy to achieve. Very few startups manage to get funding, even fewer than are able to make it a profitable business over time. And they managed within 5 years, which I think is pretty impressive, but they were relentless to always figure out what's being measured, what can we measure, what's possible. And they also then decided to cancel something. Like if it's not working, they did not pursue it any further. And yeah, to be able to see that because it's not really a failure, you know, like if you then put some work into that project for 2-3 months, but it doesn't work, it's actually a good indicator if you do have those metrics, because then you realize, okay, let's focus on the other thing that's working. And even if people look very easy on like interviews, they do a Bloomberg interview or whatever it is when the startup is successful. But to get there, there is a lot of situations like you just explained.
Yeah, absolutely. The shorter period of time you have to identify whether what you did works or no, the less money you spend on that.
Yes. Yeah.
And this is the key. What you mentioned is whether you understand what is this business, what is the business value, what is the business impact in your team, especially if you work for some company. Somebody definitely in your team or the manager of your team definitely knows that. So if you are shielded from that business and you are just doing a factory style delivery where somebody tells you, okay, build this feature, it should behave like that, and you just do it, you could ask this question like to these people who knows, and this will give you more clues of what to challenge. I generally like to challenge my team oftentimes because there are some business analysts who try to translate the business problem into the feature. And then when we read their documentation about that, how they did that, the acceptance criteria that they think is important, the whole team has an opportunity to challenge that, to ask questions. Why do I doing this? How customer benefits for that? How the bank benefits for that? And other stuff. And I think this is important. This is important because challenge is always important. Challenge make both sides think more, evaluate things more, and come up with something that really works.
Yeah.
And
that's very important. Yeah. Sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's very important. Absolutely. Otherwise you don't have control over whether you deliver or your team delivers business value or no. You just bet for that. You trust someone who translated the business problem into the technical requirements that you will now fulfill by design or development.
Yeah.
And from one perspective, you could say it's not my responsibility. I just do according to these technical requirements. But this is a unique value proposition that you have, or you are a regular guy who just developed the technical requirements, or you are the one who impacts the business. So it's up to you to choose which direction you go. But I'm saying Cristiano Ronaldo earns astronomical numbers, not just because he scores goals, because he is a hero of Arabic sports.
He figured out that situation. I think it takes quite a bit of work to get there. So why I'm saying this is important, which I really agree with you. We can take a lot of examples within Germany, car industry, medical, education. There's a lot of situations where I've been in projects and maybe the goal is like to copy another company and say they are successful. If we do the same thing, we will also be. If we try to approach to develop car software, for example, within that possibility. And that's why I think it's so important, because if you now look at all the AI initiatives that are happening, it's a lot of money. That accreditation process for DiGA is within 6-7 digits, can definitely reach 1.5 to millions just for the process itself. And we're not talking development time. Like you see, there's 5 to 10 developers, all the salaries, 100K per month, 200K per month. These are significant costs. And if I look at how companies have hundreds of millions of euros to invest within AI projects, I think that's a very important question to ask. Because if we look at that startup, for example, they had 3 to 5 year investment plan for the investors, for themselves. Maybe if it doesn't pay off within that year, still you have a definition of done or an idea where you want to work towards too. I think if you don't, it's really hard, because we also have done a lot of projects, like we do 15 to 20 maybe a year. Lots of them are startups. So those who don't make it might copy something. They have a good idea and they execute very well. But then figuring out that there is no market for it after you launch the product, there's all kinds of situations. So I think creating this definition of done and using it also in the development phase, but also outside, I think is really valuable.
Makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. For, as you said, on the level of where you do a B2B business, or where you are just trying to be a small employee or an individual solo freelancer, this makes a lot of sense. This changes the game if you learn that. We come again to the point, Marius, that sure, you should be good at your craft, but that's not everything. And these communication skills, your soft skills, business identification skills play so significant role on your success in general. So I think it's important for everybody of us to continue learning how to be better in this side too. Not only polishing our illustration skills and so forth.
Yeah. Nice. Very good discussion today. I think hopefully it helps everybody to question their definition of success, or definition of done in this case, which I actually prefer.
Yeah, that's really cool. One thing that I wanted to mention at the end is like, but what doesn't work? When the project fails and when the chances to fail or risks are very high. The risks are very high if your delivery circle is very long. So you take certain business requirements or technical requirements from your from the company that hires. You take a budget, and then you promise, okay, within half a year we will deliver. And then you build and build and build and do, and then ship, and nobody needs this anymore. So the company is happy, they pay the budget, they sell, but then they launch it to their customers, to their business, and they see it doesn't fit, it doesn't work, it doesn't bring value. Because everybody decided that it will be on solo, there is a person or a company that orders, there is an executor who delivers, and so everybody had its own ideas how it should look like at the end, and so even the technical requirements were fulfilled, and then the exchange of the delivery was happening, and everything according to the contract, everything is good, nothing to claim against. You get your money and everything is fine. But they won't hire you anymore. They won't hire you anymore because they just realize that it doesn't solve their problem at the end.
Yeah. Also a very important point. And I think right now it's happening a lot. If I look at agencies and also freelancers, you're wondering maybe why you're not getting that work anymore. Again, there's a lot of tools that might replace you within that process, or companies see more business value in replacing it with that service or an internal team. It's not because you've done bad work. And for us, we've really adjusted or had to adjust a lot to this within the last few months. But if you understand, you're able to. And I think that's why it's a very good skill. Yeah.
With AI period now, AI could help us so much with craft, but it cannot help with business until we explicitly apply the outcomes that AI can reduce to the business. Therefore, this is more important. The other side of the deal, not only craftsmanship, you will do it with the help of AI, faster, more performant, better quality, but make sure that what you build actually solves that business problem.
Yeah.
Really good talk today. I think we covered both psychological and technical parts, and I think this is why this episode and others that we have already, they are so diversified. We try to look at the problems from different angles, and for me it's very interesting.
I'm very happy that we get the time to discuss those things, because I feel like when I'm doing work, and I hope this helps also people who are listening, that you're in those situations, within that moment it's hard to reflect. Maybe you're so busy, or you're of course affected because you lose your job or the project ends. So it's not as easy to think about it in that moment, but I hope this helps to find ways to work with the situation or even change it.
From today on, you are a business designer, a business developer, a business copywriter. Think about this.